The wonder of youth, our childhood, a time to dream, to laugh, to imagine and play. But for some, the hard knocks of life come way too soon.
I felt like I lost all innocence, all childhood. I lost complete trust in my world. I felt like I stopped being a kid.
At the young age of 8, little Kira and her 3 younger sisters fell under the control of a newly acquired stepbrother who abused them when their mother went to work.
It was just this cold, quiet settling that happened over the house once she left, and we just all knew that we were going to get our turn, and so we just waited.
Kira knew what he did to her was wrong, and she felt guilty but didn't know why. Mostly she felt afraid. Afraid of him, afraid for her sisters, and afraid to tell anyone what happened.
I think I stopped playing pretend. I stopped imagining, because when I was abused, we were playing pretend. So I didn't care about that anymore.
Kira's story is a familiar one. According to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, nearly 300,000 instances of child sexual abuse get reported each year in the United States.
It colors a child's life forever, and they really do misperceive the actions of others. There's huge issues with trust and being able to understand who they can trust in life.
Laura Blanchard knows the impact of child sexual abuse all too well. She has run the Provo-based Children's Justice Center for the past 20 years. She says about 800 children walk into the Provo Center each year, little souls with broken hearts and broken lives.
It does weigh on them. They come in literally with their head down and their shoulders slumped, and they do appear very sad, very worried, very apprehensive.
The rate of child abuse in Utah County is comparable to national statistics. More than 1 out of 4 girls are sexually abused by age 18. It's estimated that more than 1 in 6 boys get sexually abused, but these cases may be significantly underreported.
Because there's a huge part of you that's been stolen away from you that you can't ever get back.
Deondra Brown's abuse story drew national attention. She and her 4 famous siblings, known as the 5 Browns, perform in concerts around the world, displaying their exceptional musical ability. But the bright faces on the stage hid the trouble at home. Their father is now in prison after pleading guilty to 3 felony counts for sexually abusing his daughters when they were children.
The more time that goes by, I feel more, in control of my life, but there are definitely those days where I'm just like, oh man. The best way I tell people is like, I just struggle to keep my head above water a lot of days. And those days get fewer and far between, but they're still there. There's still days when I have nightmares. There's still days when, something blindsides me and makes me, draws me back to that period in my life. Stretching legs, see there's their legs, and pointing toes.
Now married with a daughter of her own, Deondra and her sister run a nonprofit foundation to educate people about the plight of abused children and to reach out to the victims of child sexual abuse.
The biggest impact that we hope to have is just by getting people to talk about this issue and to realize what a big problem it is. And the more people are aware, the more that they can notice when a child seems out of sorts, or notice when things seem off in a home, and not just you toss it out of their mind, but realistically realize that they could have an effect on somebody's life.
Most people don't like to think that such crimes as child sexual abuse occur in their community, especially among people who pay their taxes, go to church, and obey the law.
We see all the good things in Provo and in the county, and there are so many good things, but in reality, there are things that take place that aren't good, that need our attention and our help.
Traditionally, the investigation of child sexual abuse requires multiple interviews with the child victim by police, social workers, medical personnel, psychologists, and attorneys. In other communities, all these interviews occur in a different place by a different person, and a setting unfamiliar and often uncomfortable to the child victim.
Come on up, we're going to talk upstairs. We'll just come up this way.
The state of Utah created the Children's Justice Center to reduce the trauma on the child victim and help them feel safe to tell the truth about what happened to them.
I'm really glad to say that the Children's Justice Center system has worked exactly the way we thought it would. When we first carried the legislation, I said to myself, boy, I'm taking a chance on this. And yet we had a lot of belief and we had a lot of believers, and I think we ended up with a good product.
Utah State Senator John Valentine helped to create the charter for the Children's Justice Center back in 1992. A home-like atmosphere where multiple governmental agencies work together to help families dealing with the crisis and chaos that follows the disclosure of sexual or physical abuse of a child.
Well, certainly the safety of the child is the first consideration. And that's why this entire facility is created to be a safe place for children to talk about a very difficult thing.
The center looks like a home for a reason. Children who come here find a non-threatening environment. A trained professional greets the child and helps them talk about what happened.
You know, there are so many barriers to children reporting. They really do have a sense that this is something they can't talk about. Sometimes they have been threatened very seriously by the perpetrator to keep their silence. Other times they are just ashamed because they feel like they've done something wrong when in fact it's not anything they've done.
Once the child feels comfortable to talk, the center team member can conduct one interview that meets the needs of all the investigating agencies.
The children, as they are interviewed, are videotaped, audio taped, so that there's a complete record not only of what the child says, but any questions that may have been asked. So there's never a question in anyone's mind about this disclosure coming from the child, that it hasn't been introduced to the child by the questioning that this is actually coming from the child.
Kira remembers the day her mother brought her into the center, a little girl with a lot of fear.
I got to choose the room that we sat in so that, I felt comfortable and had power over my situation. And I was able to color or play with toys while they sat back from me and asked questions gently. And they didn't push or prod. It was so different from where we had come from. It was safe and clean and warm, and I really feel that it's child-oriented. It has toys and comfortable furniture. It was like coming to Grandma's home with all the pictures and the teddy bears, and I loved it. The adults were happy to see me. They were welcoming. I loved every minute of being here.
With the loving help of the center staff, Kira soon learned that the abuse was not her fault, and she let go of the burden she carried. In fact, she actually dreamed that somehow her family could live at the Children's Justice Center.
I just felt so safe and wonderful here that I thought, well, if we moved in here, then nothing bad could happen to us. It'd be a nice, clean, happy home.
Well, Kara couldn't live here, but part of the center went home with her. On her first visit, she got to pick out one of these teddy bears to remind her of the love she felt at the center.
The first time I had a teddy bear that was pink and floral, because I loved pink at the time. And then as I got more mature, I picked out a purple bear, and it had lace around the collar and a bow, and it was velvet, and I loved that.
These unique-looking bears that provide comfort for the children in need come from volunteers who never meet the children they made them for.
Since 1992, we have done a minimum of 50 teddy bears a month because we know it matters to children.
The Sisters of the Pleasant View LDS Stake Relief Society started hand-stitching teddy bears for the Children's Justice Center 20 years ago. They meet once a month in this room, donating their time and talents for the children of Utah County.
Prepare the fabric, cut them out, sew them up. Then we bring them here, because we always start the workshops with bare bodies. They're too complicated to sew in the workshop. And so then they're stuffed, they sew up the backs, trim them, and then we take them to the Children's Justice Center.
It takes 4 to 6 hours to make one bear. They make 50 to 100 bears a month.
I think that as I visit with the sisters, they've caught a vision of what it means to the children.
In addition to the time, the ladies also donate all the materials. So far, they have made more than 18,000 of these teddy bears.
One of those kinds of things that you get your heartstrings tied up in, and as we hear the various stories about the children and the way they've been abused and what's happened to them, you just know that it makes a difference.
Blanchard says the homemade bears become a cherished and trusted friend to most of the children who come here and helps them begin the healing process.
They begin to get a sense that somebody individually and personally cared about them. It's a response from the community that says, hey, you're important, and you're unique, and you're wonderful. Just as each of these teddy bears are totally unique, and there are some wild teddy bears out there sometimes, but the reality is each of these children get to choose, and they choose something that means something to them, that they can take home and be very proud that they were able to come and do something very difficult and to move forward in their lives.
The Children's Justice Center is a unique public-private partnership where government agencies provide necessary investigation services and community volunteers provide emotional and financial support to help children heal.
As a state senator, as an ecclesiastical leader, as an attorney, I see children who have been traumatized. I see a place where they can be taken that's safe. I see a place where people care, where the community says this is our Children's Justice Center. That's why I supported it initially, and that's why I still support it.
The Utah State Legislature provides minimal operational funding for the center, as does Utah County and Provo City. But donations from the community built and furnish the center and fund ongoing support services for the children and families.
There is simply nothing you can invest your money in that will have the impact on the future that investing in a child and a child's healing will have. We are our future in terms of these children will be who we will live with and who our children will live with for the future. What we do now to help these children heal makes a difference, and that's where we all feel better about giving and donating to a cause. Can we really make a difference? And here we absolutely can.
There's a multiplier effect here. A dollar that goes into this organization is multiplied many times by the many hours of volunteerism and the many good people contributing to this. So every dollar given to this is not only goes to a great cause, but it's really multiplied many times.
I think it's important for people to understand that we have a place like the Children's Justice Center. That's a place where a child can be taken who has been sexually abused, who has been physically abused, even who has been emotionally abused. A place that's a safe place to take a child.
And I'm grateful that the Children's Justice Center doesn't just, throw a kid in a room with a cop, that they're gentle and kind about it.
Kira is one of the many success stories from the Children's Justice Center. Now happily married with a baby boy, an accomplished ballroom dancer and a college graduate. A life filled with joy, far from the dark and scary events that occurred in her childhood.
I'm just grateful that I was restored a little part of my worth and my independence and my innocence. Not everything, and that's just the way life goes, but I was able to become a healthy, well-adjusted, married, happy, successful adult, and it's because I was able to be counseled that that wasn't right and it wasn't my fault, and that everything at some point will be okay.
That's what the operators of the Children's Justice Center want for every child who comes through these doors, a chance to heal and move forward from the ravages of physical and sexual abuse.
I think I'm a person of worth and that I deserve good things to happen to me.